Today on Weekend Review, Taylor Bachrach calls out the Minister of Transportation in Parliament. The Coast Mountain School District now officially has a new superintendent, and a new play will be hitting the stage in Terrace. Hello and thank you for joining us here on Weekend Review, where we cover all the news here in the Northwest. Well, it was revealed this week that the Kitimat City Council has made the choice to approve a 2.4% pay raise for both the councillors as well as the mayor, Phil Germuth. The main reason given for the increase in pay is so that their payment is able to properly reflect the rise in the current cost of living, and as a result, the increase was also tied to Consumer Price Index covering the period between August 2023 and August of this year. The raise will come into effect on January 1st next year and is said to also coincide with the community's practice to make their salary adjustments equal to places throughout the Northwest. The local community members were offered the chance to give public feedback to this news, but as of right now, no one has any major objections. Well, just weeks into her new role, Tracy McMillan is now serving as superintendent for the Coast Mountain School District, and I got a chance to catch up with her in her few weeks on the job. The Coast Mountain School District now has a new superintendent who will be replacing Janet Meyer, and that is Tracy McMillan, who is making the move over from the Stakina School District. One intriguing question heading into the school year was phone usage among students and how they would respond to the changes. And after McMillan conversed with the board last week, so far, so good.
They are seeing an increase in student focus and engagement throughout the school. They say there seems to be more student collaboration in class, and most importantly, students seem to be more verbal and socially engaged during the day. Overall, they say the students are responding positively to this initiative, and they also anticipate that this will be reflected well in course completeness.
Now in May of 2024, Janet Meyer was appointed as the interim superintendent for the time being. Though McMillan has 4 years of experience in this role previously, she cites that Meyer's background and knowledge has been a valuable resource in her first 3 weeks on the job.
I have an excellent relationship with Janet. Her background and knowledge has been a valued resource as we move through this transition period, and we both believe that it is essential to put in place the best resources that will enhance the environment for all of our learners. And I really appreciate Janet and the giving of her time.
McMillan also believes that the school district is in a good place, and going forward, they will continue the same practices.
The school district is functioning well, and principals, vice principals, teachers, and support staff, they already do much to present a welcoming and inclusive environment. So I think my intent is to definitely build on these strengths and to promote the positives so that the community becomes more fully aware of the many successes that are in our school.
From CFTK, I'm Damian Smith. Now on November 2nd, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Nishka Hall in Prince Rupert, the city hosted its first ever Pet Expo. Their goal was to raise awareness to the many local stray cats, as well as money for the city, so that they can require the funds to get to work on both the neutering their gradually growing population of feral cats. The event is being brought to life by the efforts of different organizations and animal business owners in the local area. And this event also included animal merchandise, face painting, animal puzzles, a children's coloring station, and more. Well, the Terrace Little Theater is gearing up for a new show, and the group will be presenting It's a Wonderful Life on Air, a Canadian stage reinvention of the 1947 movie story that has actors presenting the show as a period radio broadcast, complete with songs, live sound effects, and holiday jingles. CFTK's Jayleen Matthews caught up with the production crew to see how everything is shaping up.
Paint is going on and preparations are underway to transform the Terrace Little Theater into a 1950s radio station.
So you're going to get an interesting experience where you have actors playing other actors, and you have a trained artist doing all the sound effects. steps or shoes on stairs, bells ringing, guns going off, car engines, all kinds of sound effects that are all done with all kinds of various objects. So that becomes a play within a play itself, what's happening with the sound effect. And then you have the music, the piano and the singers. So there's a lot going on. Be very entertaining. And then it's a Christmas story, one of the most beloved films ever. Yeah.
This will be the second show the Terrace Little Theatre has put on since their COVID hiatus.
Well, yeah, I was ASM on our last show, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, so this is going to be a lot different because we don't have as many backstage parts. It's all on stage, so planning all of that has been interesting and lots of fun.
The audience can expect live sound effects and music.
The jingles have a familiar ring to them, so all the little commercial jingles, you'll go, oh, I think I've heard that tune before. They're just fun and upbeat. I have the privilege of working with Karen Shaw Carter and Amber Zanon and Amanda Ramsey as our three female singers who are sort of going Andrews Sisters style to fit in with the time period.
So it's a very kind of immersive experience. The audience comes in and it actually becomes quite involved in being because they're an audience being an audience.
The show runs between November 28th and December 15th with 7 p.m. showtimes and 2 p.m. matinee. For CFTK News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Well, it was revealed that this week's Prince Rupert's Airport bus stop is set to switch to a brand new location. As of November 1st, the bus stop, which was initially located at the Prestige Hotel, will now be making its home at the corner unit of the Highliner Hotel. The new site is only about 2 blocks or so away from the previous site, and anyone who accidentally makes their way to the old site thinking it's still operational will be able to notice signage that will direct them to the brand new site. The main route that the bus is said to take is the ferry on Digby Island, so that people can eventually get on their way to making it to the local airport. Up next, MP Taylor Bachrach takes a stand in Parliament calling out the Minister of Transportation. Welcome back. Well, it's been 5 years since a then 69-year-old woman from Houston has not been found since she went out for a walk. Lorraine Fabian was the name of the Houston resident in question, and despite the efforts of the Houston search and rescue team, they were unable to find her despite getting help from an RCMP helicopter and other search and rescue volunteers from different communities. Fabian's physical description is described as a 143-pound, 5'4" Caucasian woman who has brown eyes and brown hair. And those that have any information on where Fabian went or currently is located are asked to call the Houston RCMP at 250-845-2204. Now on Tuesday, Skeena Bulkley Valley MP Taylor Bachrach took a stand in Parliament by calling out the Minister of Transportation for allegedly allowing Canadian Airlines to get away with mistreating the passengers that take those same airlines. Jaylene Matthews from CFTK has more on this story.
MP Taylor Bachrach rose in Parliament this week to highlight that the U.S. Department of Transport recently fined American Airlines $50 million for its treatment of people with disabilities.
Well, here in Canada, people have been dropped on the floor. They've had their wheelchairs broken and lost. One even had to drag themselves off a plane by their arms. And this government's response, wait for it, the minister held a summit with plenty of nice words and zero action. Why is it that the Americans get a Secretary of Transport that stands up for passengers, while here in Canada, we get ministers of transport that continually cave to the big airlines?
The Minister of Transport responded, denying a lack of action.
I beg to differ. I'm standing up in this House today after meeting with our government's Chief Accessibility Officer to definitively emphasize how important passenger safety and accessibility is for this government. And I will repeat that over and over again in this House and outside of this House. There is nothing more important than non-discrimination and more accessibility and safety for our air passengers, rail passengers, and freight passengers also.
Last year, following reports of passenger mistreatment, a study was done at the Transport Committee on the issue of accessible air transport for people with disabilities. There were many reports of passenger mistreatment being common, but airlines reported having measures in place. MP Bachrach maintains that he wants to see airlines held accountable and changes to federal policy to ensure that people with disabilities can travel safely and with dignity. For CFTK News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Well, a recent proposal from the Kitimat Chamber of Commerce was rejected by Kitimat Council that suggested moving the Heritage Park Amphitheater to a different location so that it could be used a little bit more often. This decision came from the councillors despite the fact that the theater has dealt with various issues like limited power and highway noise since it was finished being built back in 2020. The thought was to most likely move the structure to the local fairgrounds with the Snowflake Community Fairground Society by offering to facilitate the move by covering the move's costs. But ultimately, the council believed that keeping it in a place was the best course of action because of the cost of the move-in, and they then told their staff to work with the Chamber of Commerce on other ways to increase its usage. Well, this weekend, the 64th edition of the online TV auction will be underway, put on by the Rotary Club of Terrace at the Sportsplex Banquet Room. Various items will be on display on Saturday, November 2nd from 5 to 10 p.m., as well as Sunday, November 3rd from 1 to 9 p.m. Pre-bidding opened last Friday night and will be open up until those same items are sold, and those items are also listed on the organization's website. But to be eligible to be a credible bidder, you must have a bidder ID number from last year or to send an email at auction@terracerotary.org. This event will also be live streamed on Facebook, and the club can take live auctions virtually by calling 778-634-3501. Now, after spending about a month sending out public notices about the turbidity levels in the water, the District of Kitimat recently made the choice to lift their water quality advisory. A boil water notice was initially put out in the later part of September that led to some high stream flows and even a different advisory being put into place after the elevated waters that came after the North Coast was hit with a major amount of rain. The boil notice eventually downgraded to a water quality advisory by October 10th, which was there to ensure that certain people, like those with weaker immune systems, young kids, pregnant women, and senior citizens, kept boiling their water to stay safe. After the break, the Terrace RCMP set up a booth recommending parents to pick up child ID kits. Welcome back. Well, the Terrace RCMP set up their own booth in the Skeena Mall for another way for parents and guardians to keep their children safe if an emergency arises, and I got a chance to stop by.
Well, it is a parent's worst nightmare to lose their kid in any capacity, and the Terrace RCMP set up something a little extra at Terrace's Skeena Mall, where the local RCMP held an event to help families get prepared if they ever need to quickly get access to the information of their young children. Between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., the RCMP offered child identification kits, which are items given to families that can be used to store information like their kid's blood type, their fingerprints, a hair sample, and even potentially a photo if the need arises. Once these kits are filled out with all the possible information, parents or authorities have a way to quickly find crucial information about their kids in time-urgent situations. The kits are free, and they could either be picked up for later use or be filled out when those parents did arrive. And this is the first time the RCMP has done this event since 2017. From Terrace, I'm Damian Smith.
Well, the City of Prince Rupert has been hosting public feedback sessions on its drafted budget for 2025 and the associated draft tax rate. The plan proposes a 6.4% property tax increase as well. The city said that they proposed this in order to maintain services at existing levels and to represent an increase of $129 to the average homeowner when 2025 hits. In addition to the increase to the property tax rate, the council will also consider new utility fee bylaws with fee adjustments proposed to service the city's debt portion of funding that's being directed to critical water and sewer renewal. In total, if adopted, those fee changes will lead to a $145 increase to overall utility rates after the 10% early pay discount is applied. The next opportunity to provide input will be November 12th at 7 p.m. at Prince Rupert City Hall. Well, the NDP may have won the election, but Premier David Eby says he has heard the message that voters have sent him. He's traded his partisan shots with a tone of cooperation, given that he has won the slimmest of majorities with 47 seats. Rob Buffum also talks more about how Eby will have crucial days in the days ahead.
An emotional and visibly relieved David Eby returned to the legislature Tuesday.
I'm glad to see. I'm glad to be here. It was an eventful campaign.
Fresh off the final count that shows his party won the election and is poised to form a majority government, but with the thinnest of margins, subject to judicial recounts, 47 seats and a House of 93 MLAs.
This was a message that was sent certainly to me, to our government from British Columbians, that they expect us to do better on a number of key files.
Key files that include crime and the overdose crisis.
Addressing issues of public drug use, of people struggling with mental health issues, and severe addiction in our streets are a priority for British Columbians.
Eby says pending the judicial recount on 2 close ridings being done in about a week, his priority is swearing in a new cabinet likely next month, and then bringing the House back before Christmas, but just for one day.
The intent is to get the legislature working, to get a speaker elected so that we can get going with the new elected representatives that British Columbians have sent to Victoria. We will not be introducing, and it's not my intention to introduce legislation in the fall.
Given how bare his majority, not good enough, says this political scientist who thinks a throne speech and the related confidence vote is needed this fall.
We cannot be sure that they have the confidence of the legislature until they have that vote. And they need to have that in order to make governing decisions, at least to make them legitimately.
As for appointing a Conservative or Green as Speaker, or even to Cabinet to bolster his majority numbers, Eby isn't ruling it out.
We want this place to be stable. We want this place to work for British Columbians. And we're open to all kinds of discussions with MLAs about how that could work and what that would look like.
Now, frozen waffles sold in BC are joining the growing list of brands that have been recalled in Canada throughout the past week or so because of possible listeria contamination. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says the newest recall covers organic home-style and blueberry waffles sold under the 365 Whole Foods and Market label. And the agency says that the waffles recalled by Horizon distributors were sold in British Columbia, but may have also made their way to other provinces and territories. Dozens of frozen waffles from brands like Compliments, Great Value, Duncan Hines, and No Name were recalled a bit earlier as well over some similar listeria concerns. Still to come, the NDP held their first caucus meeting since winning the provincial election. Well, the NDP also held their first caucus meeting on the heels of their election victory, and there were a lot of new faces at those same meetings. CTV Rob Buffum has more on what was a historic gathering.
A flood of fresh faces arrived for the NDP's first caucus meeting since the election. 18 of them, more than a third of the 47 MLA elects, are new to the job.
We've been watching each other's campaigns, and so it's really nice to be in the room together now.
In the room, the man of the hour, Gary Begg, subject to a pending recount. His late surge in Surrey Guildford, fueled by mail-in and absentee ballots, catapulted him to a win in the 47th seat, giving the NDP the narrowest of majorities and earning him a new nickname.
Comeback kid and all the usual ones that are expected.
This caucus is remarkable for its composition, featuring a record 65% women, part of a BC legislature that for the first time has more women than men.
The whole caucus reflects the diversity of British Columbia, and that is so important.
It's also notable because it will yield a lot of new cabinet ministers selected by Premier Eby.
I'm glad I'm not the one having to do it, and I'm glad someone else is doing it.
Some familiar faces, including Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon and Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth, are sure to return to cabinet. But many ministers are gone. 5 down to defeat. Another 7 didn't run again. meaning 12 out of 27 cabinet ministers have vanished.
Really, what is a generational turnover in the NDP caucus and potentially in cabinet.
And with such a thin majority, just one seat, these MLAs know they can't miss important votes and need to remain unified.
There is the added pressure of making sure, that we stay united together and be here as a united front.
A united front with many new members and soon-to-be new ministers.
Well, the family of a BC teen who committed suicide after facing bullying and extortion online has joined an American lawsuit that says their children suffered physical and mental harms because of social media. Amanda Todd, originally from Port Coquitlam, died after being blackmailed and harassed by a Dutch man for years, starting when she was 12 years of age. Her family is one of 11 named in a lawsuit filed in the Los Angeles County Superior Court, which alleges some of the world's largest technology companies knowingly designed and marketed defective products to kids to boost engagement numbers. It alleges companies could have taken steps to make its products safer for minors and prevent strangers from interacting with those kids. Now, this past election also saw a number of milestones, with both the NDP and Conservatives are sending a record number of minority and female candidates to Victoria in what was a historic campaign for both parties. CTV's Craig Krause has that story.
Turning of a tide. For the first time, more than half of elected MLAs in British Columbia are women.
We actually have the first black woman who has been elected since 1972. 41% of our MLAs elected are women.
Candidates from a historic campaign by both the Conservatives and the BC NDP, who had over 60% elected.
We've never had a number as this, and I think you have to go back to the last 3 or 4 elections.
Elections that were full of first. Christy Clark becoming the first elected female premier. Hello! Followed by Melanie Mark in 2016. Becoming the first Indigenous woman to be elected as an MLA.
I believe that anything's possible, and I also believe that it's about time.
Mark spent 8 years in Victoria, serving as a minister for 5, before stepping away from the political arena in 2023.
This place felt like a torture chamber.
Ups and downs, balancing her roles as an MLA, a cabinet minister, while also raising a family.
It's just really unmanageable. Those 18-hour days are long. There's a lot of work to do when you're a politician. You're an advocate, right? You've got a duty, you've got an honor to step up and be the voice of people that are relying on you to make change.
Such as being a prominent voice for truth and reconciliation. But at times, Mark says because of her Indigenous roots, she was forced to be the sole representative.
I'm doing the gross grind every day with my vision, my hope, my responsibilities, my duties, all the things that I want to carry. And someone wants to give me their backpack to carry up the gross grind. Like, I can't carry the work of our province by myself.
A group effort, regardless of background, with a goal of bettering the province, something that Mark says parties need to work on.
What would be your advice for other Indigenous women, or just women in general, considering a run in politics?
Well, I think you have to take care of your health.
Whether that's physical and or mental. And as for what's next for Mark, well, she tells me after some time reflecting on her time in Victoria, she hasn't ruled out another run at politics, but is just enjoying being a rugby mom for now. Craig Krause, CTV News, Vancouver.
Well, that will be all for tonight's cast. Make sure to tune in on Monday for our newscast at 5, 6, and 11 o'clock here on CFTK-TV. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good night.